What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Pillars Unpacked. Thank you so much for tuning into today's episode. This is going to be a little bit of a unique and special episode. Today we are going to be discussing Our Lord in the Attic Museum and Church. This is located basically in, the very core central part of Amsterdam. So let's take a look at the church and then be sure to come back after it, and we'll have some unique insight and history on this church. All right, so as I mentioned at the top, this is going to be a little bit of a unique episode. It's one I'm very excited to cover and talk about. I've decided that as I was looking back through a lot of my footage, I'm going to just go through and finish all the footage I have from churches in Amsterdam, and then I'll pivot back to Paris after that. Just kind of helps me keep everything organized. I also am about to travel to Switzerland for the very first time, so I'm excited about that, and I'm hoping to get some footage that for some episodes that I can make from there. So we'll see. But today's episode, again, like I said, it's very interesting and kind of unusual related to a lot of the typical content, but I think it's kind of fun to cover for that reason. So this is called Our Lord in the Attic. I'm not even going to try to pronounce that in Dutch, but I put the Dutch translation in the title and the description here. But this is pretty cool. So this is located, again, it's very central in Amsterdam. It's not far from the main train station and things like that. We talked about that some on the last episode with the Basilica of St. Nicholas. But essentially what this is, I think the name of it's kind of clever, but basically it's a hidden Catholic church inside of a historic canal house. I alluded to this a little bit in the prior videos, but there was extreme tension between Catholics and Protestants, and this church dates to the extremely late 17th century. I think it was like the 1660s per se. This is when Dutch Protestantism, basically the rule of thumb was that no public form of Catholic worship was allowed at all, and so a lot of existing Catholic churches were basically converted to be used as Protestant spaces of worship. And so what ended up happening is there ended up being some covert people that use spaces covertly for worship in the Catholic tradition. And so this is an example of one of those kind of hidden churches. And so I will say for visiting it is essentially a museum today. So it is it's a paid museum that you go through. I think it's extremely worth it. The very first video clip, and I'll put more pictures in too, but the very first video clip, you can see the two buildings side by side. The building on the right that has kind of like the orange accents and everything, that's the entrance to the museum. And you go through, you watch kind of a video on, again, it's introducing the religious conflict at this time, the reason why there were some of these covert Catholic churches hidden in these canal houses. You actually wander through a preserved canal house. So the building that's on the left of that initial video clip, that is actually the building that you're going through and exploring. And they have a lot of it. It's presented as it would have been back in the day. So you see like a lot of the living quarters, you see kitchens, you see all kinds of things, and you gradually make your way further and further up this canal house. And then the actual church itself is basically in the top 3 floors so at the very top. So in that video clip, if you were to look at the top of that building on the left, those windows you're seeing, that is where the church is. And so basically like the owner of this canal house had to like basically cut open into the ceiling, even though canal houses are very skinny and tall. He cut even further into it so that it could keep going further and further up. So that's one of the things I think is very fun about if you visit it, because you can basically go like each level. So you can go, once you finally get to it, the initial level where you're looking basically at the altar is kind of like that first viewpoint. You go up another set of stairs. That's where you basically are looking at like the organ at eye level. And then you can go up again. There's a third level that kind of looks down over it. And that's where you can see like you get all the way up truly into the attic. And one of the things I think is cool is that this was like a fully functioning Catholic space. So even though it doesn't, again, look traditionally, it has like all of the main forms of like what would be required from, again, like a space in a Catholic tradition. So you can't see it like from the main view, but there is a chapel to St. Mary. There is a rectory, even though it's very small and much, more condensed. There's a confessional, like all the things that you would normally see in a church is here. So it was truly a fully functioning Catholic church hidden in the upper floors of a canal house. So I think it's very, again, it shows the sad part of religious conflict, that something like this is even necessary. But I think it is very cool that it shows kind of the perseverance and how when a religious tradition and faith is so important to somebody, it is able to endure in interesting ways like this. So again, I thought this was so fun to see. Again, very unique. I tried to get video clips as good as I could, but because of how small everything was, it kind of made it a little hard to kind of like capture the scale, how I feel like it really is. But I really do recommend visiting it. So you can see how a canal house would have looked back in the day. And again, it's very cool how it just kind of keeps leading you all the way up and up and up until you finally get to the attic church. And I love how they preserved it, because again, it shows you this time in history and why this was a thing. And I do think they have a really good, every part basically of the canal house and then the church, like they explain what it is and why it's there. So that's how you'll get to see like every aspect of how this space was used as a Catholic church. They had like a little baptismal font. They had like a holy water, like everything that you would normally see is there. And they do a good job of explaining it and showing all of that and giving you the context. So I thought this was very cool. Again, very interesting. It's very different than what we normally show. But again, I think this highlights that kind of religious tension and deep into the Protestant Reformation, between the traditions of Catholicism and then kind of the newer push towards Protestantism. And I think it also highlights pretty cool, again, like that architecture of Amsterdam and how these canal houses were used in very interesting ways, such as this. I would say this was the smallest in scale church that we've covered on the channel, but I actually don't know if that's true. I think it still might be the Alto Vista Chapel. But I will say that I think this is certainly one of the most unique. So hope you enjoyed getting to see it. Again, very much would recommend visiting both the museum and the attic church, as it's called. It's definitely one of the most interesting church spaces I think you would ever see. And I believe I have footage of either one or two more Amsterdam churches. So those will be probably the next ones that I do. And then I'm looking forward to hopefully getting some content for episodes from Switzerland. So definitely stay tuned. Thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, keep looking up.